Hello, this is Dee here from Galway Art Academy. Welcome to this cross-curricular lesson. I've put this together to help out some of you parents out there who might be trying to homeschool at the moment and finding it a bit tricky. This lesson, although it mainly is based around art activities, does cover some other subject areas which I think you might find helpful and also lots of fun. And we all know that children always learn better when they're having fun and enjoying themselves. So let's see how it goes. So the subject areas that we are going to look at in this, as I said, are mainly art. And we're also going to cover some history. We're going to be looking at Leonardo da Vinci, a little bit of geography in learning where Leonardo da Vinci came from. We're going to look at his links between art and science and how he used science in his work and how science is important to art. And during all of this, the wording and the vocabulary that we use in English, we'll be learning maybe some new words, and we're also going to learn some Irish words in that. I'm not an Irish teacher, but I'm trying to learn Irish, so you can try and learn along with me. I also just want to add that this lesson is aimed at primary school children. I deliver it mainly to about first class, second class, maybe up to third class. You could use it with some younger children, you could use it with older children, and they just would make the activities they do would be more concise. And I'll just point out a few of those things as we go along. So let's get stuck in. So the lesson is about the skeleton. And this is my friend Fred waving at us here on the right. And you might think, what are we doing looking at the skeleton? This is an art lesson. But it might surprise you to know that a lot of artists learn about anatomy. Anatomy is all about the body, and also about the skeleton, the bones in the body, because it helps them to draw people better. So a lot of the time people art students who would draw people would study the skeleton, and I have done this in my training as well. And like so many others before, Leonardo da Vinci, he probably would have been one of the first to do this. People may know Leonardo da Vinci as a painter. He made a very famous painting called the Mona Lisa, you might have heard of. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you could look it up after this if you haven't seen it. He wasn't just an artist though, he was a scientist, he was an inventor, an architect and an engineer. So he did a lot of different things, and it's somebody that I love to study myself because I think he was an all-round genius. So here's the history a little bit, background on Leonardo da Vinci. So we're talking about somebody here that lived over 500 years ago, 501 years ago since he died actually, and he was 67 when he died. He lived from 1452 to 1519, so a very, very long time ago. And here's your little bit of geography on it. So we have our map of the world. I'm going to try and use my little marker here to see if I can highlight for you where Ireland is. So we have Ireland here in Europe. Europe is the one that's all of the yellow. And within Europe also we have this little small country here, which is Italy, which I'm marking out now. Now we're going to zoom in a little bit on the next map, but just to give you, this is the full world picture and we're talking about Europe. So Italy is where Leonardo da Vinci came from. So on the left we have our picture of Europe. So this is Ireland where we are. We're over here in Galway on the west coast, if that's where you're listening to me from. And here's Italy, where Leonardo da Vinci was from. And we have a zoomed in picture of Italy here, and I just think it's kind of cool because Italy is a country that you'll recognize in maps really easily because it is in the shape of a boot, and it looks like the boot is kicking this island here. So if you see some maps again, you might recognize Italy. So we have a little bit of geography in there for you as well. So if we think back to 500 years ago, the world was a very different place then. So people travelled by boat, they travelled on horseback, they travelled in carriages that were pulled by horses. They didn't have any cars or trains or airplanes or any of the things that we have today. So it was a very, very different time. And Leonardo da Vinci was a really curious person, and I always encourage my students to be really curious about everything. And he came up with inventions for things that would help people travel, help them to fly, all of that kind of thing. Just getting an idea of the time that he lived. So we have these little drawings here. You see this little man in what I'm circling now looks like a parachute. This is a drawing from Leonardo da Vinci's notebook. And if you look at next to it, the kind of parachutes we have today. So this man came up with these ideas 500 years ago. down underneath that we have a machine that he was trying to build for flying. He was really fascinated with flying, and he looked at birds and how they moved and used their wings to try and get man to be able to fly. But we have hand gliders, and of course we have airplanes like nowadays that have these kind of wings on them as well. So he was a man that was really ahead of his time. He knew an awful lot about machines and science and how things worked. And in his notebooks, he recorded all of this. He had many, many, many notebooks. So seeing as we're talking about the skeleton, I wanted to show you some of the pages from Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks. These are his drawings of skeletons from human bodies. And he not only drew them, he also made notes next to his drawings. So if you see where the writing is, I'm just putting a mark around part of it there, he would have written in Italian. But he wrote in a different way to how we write. So when we write, we start on the left-hand side of the page and we write across like this. He would have started on the right-hand side of the page and written backwards. Not only did he write from right to left, he also reversed all the letters. So instead of drawing the letter F like we would draw it like this, his F would have been, let's see if I can do it like this. So it might be a little bit of fun to see if you can write your name backwards. And people wonder, why did he do this? I think it was probably because he had so many really good ideas and he had a lot of knowledge about things. He may have been afraid at the time that people might steal his ideas. So what he did was he kind of used this as a kind of code so that somebody looking at it wouldn't understand what it was, and it would look like maybe he was writing in a different language and they wouldn't understand it. But you could use a mirror, and if you put a mirror up against this, you could read the backwards writing that way. So if you want to try have a go at writing your name backwards, you can look in the mirror to see if it looks correct. So that might be a little fun thing to do. Okay, so like I said, artists looked at the human body. He wanted to understand how the body worked because he thought that the human body was the best machine ever. So he used a lot of his knowledge of how the human body worked in creating the designs that he did for his machines. What we're thinking about now is drawing skeletons and drawing people. So we're going to use it for that benefit. But along the way, we might learn some other. So he did the drawings like this of the skull. So looking at things very closely, and look, you'll see even on the left here, he's even got a drawing of a few teeth that would have been in that skull. And on the right hand side, he has drawings here that aren't just a skeleton, but it shows how the muscles are attached to bones. And of course, that's how we can move our bodies. So I really love these drawings of Leonardo da Vinci, and he has lots and lots of notebooks with other things on that. And if you're interested in finding out more about him, you could always look him up yourself and see if you can find something that interests you. This one here relates to proportion, and people often refer to this when they're talking about proportions of the human body. What I mean by proportion is maybe how many sizes of this man's head would fit into the length of his body. And when we're drawing people in art, it tends to be between 7 and 8, depending on whether they're male or female. But what I wanted to show you this for is if we look at the tip of the finger on the man on this side, and if we were to get a measuring tape or a piece of string or a piece of wool, measure all the way across the chest to the arm and the tip of the finger on the other side, and we're going to cut that piece of wool off there. If you then get the length of that, get someone to help you at home, put it up against the wall, you'll discover that if you measure across your arms and across your chest, that's actually how tall you are. So that's what he was one of the things he was trying to show with this image of this man in the circle, the Vitruvian man. So your height is actually the same as your arms stretched out like that. So from head, oh, I'm a bit wobbly, to toe. It's very hard to draw using a mouse on a computer. Okay, let's keep going. So the things I want to get you to think about in this is you're being curious. Like Leonardo da Vinci, I want you to be curious about something. And what we're looking at today is about how the body works, particularly the skeleton. So I have a list of questions here that I think you should be able to answer and know by the end of this lesson. Now, you might not do the lesson all in one go. You might do a little bit and pause and come back another day, and that's fine. You can do it that way, whatever way suits you. I guess that's one of the benefits of doing something online. So let's have a look at the questions. What's the function of the skeleton? What is it for? Now, you may know the answer to some of these already, and if you do, great, but I'm sure there's some in here that you don't. How many bones are in the body? And we're talking about the human body, we're talking about an adult human body, because you will discover that children actually have more bones than adults. Where is the longest bone in the body? Where is the part of the skeleton, or what is the part, excuse me, of the skeleton that protects the brain? What do you call the place where bones join together? So we're not glued together, are we? So we have to find out what it's called where these bones join together. What do we call the stuff inside the bones? So there's a special kind of tissue inside our bones, and there's a name for that, and it has a very special job. Where is the smallest bone in our body? So have a think, and you might be able to even try and guess. And what do our ribs protect? You might have a good idea of this if you think about what you have inside in your chest. So maybe the ribs are protecting what's inside there. Okay, so let's keep going. We're going to be able to answer these questions at the end. Like I said, we're going to do some drawing activities. We're going to do a little bit of music. We're going to do a variety of things that are going to be lots of fun while you learn all of these things about how your body works. Let's keep going. So, think for a minute. What would happen if we didn't have any bones in our body? Would you be able to walk around? Would you be able to stand up and sit down and move? Have a think about that for a minute. So an image that always comes into my head when I think about something that doesn't have bones is a jellyfish, or something like slime that just blobs around the place because it's got nothing inside of it to hold it together and give it shape. So what would our bodies look like if we didn't have bones in them? Could be a kind of funny picture in your head. Maybe you might like to try and draw it. So in this, what I've done is I have shared 2 external links to YouTube, and I'm going to ask you to pause my presentation now and go and look at the first one. The first one is a video about a skeleton yard. It's a quite funny video. Sometimes people get a bit scared when they think, oh, I don't want to learn about skeletons, that's a bit icky, but they actually make it quite fun. So I want you to look at the video, and then we're going to come back together. We're going to go through some of the things that came up in the video, and we're going to learn a bit more about the skeleton. And at the end of that, you're going to do some drawing. So I want you to listen carefully. You can watch the video more than once if you want to. I think it's about 5 minutes long. So enjoy it, and I'll see you back here soon. Bye for now. So welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the video. We have a little picture here of Fred on the right hand side with all the labels of different names of the bones. Some of them are a little bit complicated, but some of them we are actually going to learn. So this slide is saying function. What is it for? That's what function means. So what is the skeleton for? And I know from looking at the video you might have found some of the answers to some of these things. So let's move on to the slide. There's 4 main things I want you to try and remember in your head. We're going to have a look at them on the next slide. So the function of the skeleton is, the first one, to give us shape and support us. So it gives our body shape and it holds us upright, especially the spine. We found out that in the video, didn't we? So the next thing it does is it protects the organs, but especially the organs that it protects are the heart and the lungs that we have in our chest, and they're sitting inside in our rib cage. So have a little feel of where you can feel your heart beating, and you'll feel your ribs on the front of your chest, and you know then that your ribs are on the outside and they're protecting everything that's inside. The other thing the skeleton is for, another function, is movement. Now movement happens when we move the bones, but there are special kind of elastic things that are attached to the bones called ligaments and tendons that help us to move. We're not going to go into that too much today. We're just going to say that our skeleton allows us to move. Okay, that's a little bit more complicated and we could do it another time. Now this is the one that's really magic, and people would never think that this was something that could be done by bones and in your skeleton. Actually makes blood. So how does it make blood? So remember I said about the tissue, very special tissue that's inside our bone. So if we were to cut a bone, you might have seen if you have a dog at home, you get a bone from the butcher for your dog and you cut it. There's kind of this soft, squishy tissue inside the bone, and that's called bone marrow, and that's where we make our blood cells. So our bones play a part in making blood. Okay, so that's why it's very important for us too. And you'll notice that the doggies love this when you get a nice bone for them from the butchers, and they'll eat all of that out of the middle first. So it's really, really good for them. Okay, let's keep going for now. So we talked about the ribs a few minutes ago. They protect the organs. The other thing I want you to think about here, and we have the picture on the right, and I want you to look closely at the pictures because you're learning now as you go that you're going to be able to do a drawing in a few minutes. So we have running down the center here, this is the spine. And we have our ribs that are attached to the spine at the back. They're at the front, they're attached to this bone here. This is the breastbone. So that's the front part. So they go all around like a cage. It always reminds me of a little bit of a cage. So we have 12 pairs of ribs in the spine, and you can see them numbered here. And you'll notice the two at the bottom, they don't attach at the front, only at the back, and they're called floating ribs. Maybe you might remember that one. So that's the ribs and protects the organs, and the organs it protects are, see if you can remember, the heart and the lungs. Well done. Okay, so let's keep going. Right, we talked a few minutes ago about movement. So the places on our skeleton, we have Fred here waving at us again, on the right hand side, and I've marked with red dots and blue dots where we have joints in our body. Okay, I've only marked the main ones, I haven't marked all of them, because we do have joints in other parts of our body, even in our little fingers and things we have joints. But bones are joined to other bones at joints, and joints are about movement. So some of the joints move and others don't move so much, because we do have some in our skull that don't move. The only one in our skull that moves is our jaw, so that we can talk and we can eat. But the joints in our arms and legs can move really well. We know that because we can get around. But we've got slightly different kinds of joints in the body. So we're going to look at the two different kinds now. So this is a bit of a funny one. You're saying, why has Dee got a skeleton up there and she's got a bit of a door, and what is she trying to tell us? So if you're sitting in your sitting room now or wherever you are, have a look at the doors in your room and you'll discover that they have these hinges on them, and hinges hold the door up to the frame of the door and allow it to move so we can open and close and we can go in and out. So hinges move in that way. So we've got hinge joints in our body in the same way, and these hinge joints, the main ones that we have, are at our elbows and wrists. So move your elbow and your wrist now and see if you can move back and forth and up and down like a door. And we've also got our knee and our ankle. So maybe have a little go at bending that knee, straighten the leg, bend the knee, and the ankle is the same. We've another hinge joint. So the little picture of the hinge from the door might help you to remember that this is called a hinge joint. Now the other joints are really cool ones, the next ones we're going to look at. So these joints on the shoulder and the hip are the next ones we're going to talk about. These are called ball and socket. So if you think about the ball here, I'm going to see if I can scribble in. The ball fits inside, this is kind of like a bowl, and the ball fits in there, and the bowl moves and swivels around, and the ball is able to move around inside it. So down in the picture underneath, this is what our bones look like at these points, where there's a kind of a ball end on the bone that fits into this thing that has a thing like a bowl on the other side, and they fit into each other. So that's called a ball and socket joint. And you'll notice with your shoulders and with your hips that you can rotate them more around in a circle than you can with your wrists and your elbows. You can go up and down with them, but you can't really go side to side. You could try your fingers, they'll bend, but they won't bend backwards, will they? So they don't go around. So we have different joints in different parts of the body. Those are the ones I'd like you to try and remember, just for now. Okay, this is, I think, our last little bit. So the spine is a very, very important part of the body. It gives our body shape and it supports us. So it keeps us upright. But sometimes people think that the spine is the longest bone in the body. But actually the spine is made up of, I'm just underlining it, 33 different bones. And these bones are called vertebrae. That's how we say it, V-E-R-T-U-H, brae. That's not how it's spelled, but if you want to try and sound it out, vertebrae. You'll see it over here, how it's spelled up above. Okay, when it has the E on the end, that means there's more than one of them. Over here, it's vertebra, because it's just one of them. And each one of these vertebrae is in the shape of a ring. So if you look over on the right hand side, we have different parts of the spine. So the blue ones at the top are smaller, and they get a little bit bigger as they come down to the purple ones. These are the purple ones just here. And then we have the yellow ones, and they're a different shape altogether, but they're kind of similar. And the whole part of these the little hole, like what makes it look like a ring, is where our spinal cord fits in, and that's the spinal cord that connects up into our brain and sends all those special signals around our body to help us to move and understand things. It's like a very special electric current. So we have 33 vertebrae in the spine. That's what I want you to try and remember from this one. And that the vertebrae look like this, and they get stacked on top of each other to make up the full spine. So the spine isn't one full bone on its own. Okay, well done. Let's move on. Now, we're going to move into our little bit of English-Irish. So we've learned some words today maybe that might be new, maybe they're not, but we're going to have a go at them in Irish. And this is where I'm going to probably need your help. You can send me the correct pronunciations if you want to send me a little recording, but I'm going to have a go. So skeleton, and the reason why I'm going to go through this is we're going to label your drawing. When you're going to do your drawing of your skeleton, we're going to use these words to label it, and you can label them in English and Irish, or just English. That's totally up to you. But it would be good if you could try and remember some of them. Now I've got 3 slides and they have 5 words on each. So even if you could try and remember 1 or 2 from each slide, that'd be great for the younger people. And the older people then can try more, okay? So if you're kind of 3rd class, 4th class, you should be well able to learn them all, and maybe you know some of them already. So we have the skeleton, which is on Cnámharlach. And you'll notice the word Cnámh is there because down below bone is a Cnámh, is bone. So it means all the bones together, really. Spine, Drumlock, and we know drum is our back, so that makes sense. Skull, Cligan. Ribs, I always have difficulty pronouncing this one. Éisneacha. We'll have a go. Maybe I'm not doing it perfectly. You can correct me if I'm not, but I am trying to learn. Right, let's have a look at the next ones. So we have shoulder, guillin, arm, love, leg, cos, hip, crumán, foot, cos. Now cos and cos sound very similar there, but you'll see with the foot there's actually a H in it, and with the leg there's no H. Okay, and the last set of words, and you might want to come back to these to find them as your labels for your drawing when you come to doing it. So in the next one we have hand, which is love, finger is mare, elbow is illan, thumb is ordóig, ankle, another one I find difficult to pronounce. Ritin, I think, is the correct way, but I'm going to look that up after and see if I'm doing it properly. Maybe you might know how to do it better. But we're learning. Let's keep going. So it's time for you to draw your skeleton. So all you're going to need is just a blank sheet of paper. Doesn't matter how big or small it is, you can pick whatever size. You might want a pencil, you might want an eraser, and I want you to try and look back at some of the pictures of skeletons that were on some of the previous images. You might like to go on the internet and find a picture of a skeleton you want to try and draw. And I want you to make sure you leave space around the drawing so you can put the words in. So I've done this activity with Ranga Hain in Gaelscoil Macaulay, and here is some of the pictures of the skeletons that they made. Didn't they do well? I think they look really good. So I want you to have a go. So this is 1st class. So if you're a bit younger, maybe you might not be able to do all of it and you don't have to put in all the writing, but definitely have a go at maybe drawing the top half. If you're a bit older, I think you can do lots more detail, and I'd like you to think about the ribs and see if you can fit in the 12 pairs. Think about the size that you're doing it. Are the arms long enough? Is it the same as his height, or have we done the proportions wrong? So all the things that we're after looking at, I want you to use them to learn. And look, one of the students here even called this one Fred. So maybe you can give your drawing a name as well. So that's the first activity, doing your skeleton drawing. Have a bit of fun with it, spend a bit of time on it, go back over some of the things that you've seen, and I'll see you for the next activity. Enjoy. Also, I'd love to see some of the pictures that you do. So if you could get someone at home to take a picture of your skeleton drawing and send it to me, that would be great. And I'll be giving you information at the very end how to do that. Okay, enjoy the drawing. Bye for now. Okay, welcome back. We have our next little video clip up, and this might even be a little bit of fun to do while you're doing your drawing because it'll help you to remember where all the things are together. but this is the other link that I will have sent along with the presentation. And it's great because it's got really cool music. It's kind of a music melody you might have heard before, but the words are changed a little bit. And it teaches us about the different parts of the body and how they're connected together. It's a great fun thing to do. I want you to join in with the dance, sing along with it, play it a couple of times until you get to know it. And maybe you could sing it on your own without the video link. So this is going to help you to remember. This is a great activity for the younger children especially. So have a little bit of fun, and if you feel brave enough, you can send me a little video of you doing the skeleton dance, and if I get enough of them in, I'll do one too, okay? And we can all have a little bit of a giggle at each other. That'd be a bit of fun, wouldn't it? All right, we'll move on now to the next activity. So send me photos of your drawings. This is one of the ways that you can do it. I said I was going to come to that. You can email it to me. There's my email address, dee@galwayartacademy.com. And I know mums and dads, some of them have my phone number. So there's my phone number if you want to send a WhatsApp image to me. That'd be a way to do it. Okay, this is activity number 3. And this one is really, really cool. This is us guys going to take an x-ray of our own hand. How are we going to do that? We don't have any special machines, but we do have a great imagination. So this is an x-ray picture here of somebody's hands, and you can see how the flesh is around the bones, but you can also see how all the bones are inside the hand. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and do an x-ray of our hands. So let's see how we get on. So what you're going to need for your x-ray picture is some black paper like this here. I'm putting a little X on. If you don't have black paper, any kind of paper that's a little bit darker than white will do. Just something that you'll be able to see these cotton buds on, because if we put white on white, it's hard to see. If you have to do it on white, don't worry, that's fine. I know it might not be easy to get all of these materials. Okay, so the next thing you're going to need is these Q-tips. So we're not cleaning our ears here. Our Q-tips are actually going to be parts of the bone. The other thing you're going to need is a little bit of white chalk. If you don't have white chalk, maybe a white pencil might do. And then you're going to need a paintbrush. The paintbrush doesn't have to be brand new. An old one's actually really good because we're going to use the paintbrush for the glue. So we're going to dip it into the glue. And the last thing you need is a scissors. Okay, so if you've got all those things gathered up together, you can pause the video and come back to see how we're going to make this. So let's do our x-ray. Okay, so we're putting our hand down like on the right hand side where I'm putting the X here, and we're drawing around it. Now we want to make sure we draw in nice and close to the edges of the fingers. So we don't want to give ourselves big fat fingers. We want to go right in close to the edges. We're going around carefully, and spread your fingers wide if you can. So this line doesn't have to be drawn very heavy. This is just to give us the shape of a hand so we know where to put in the Q-tips to make the bones. So on the pictures here, I have done this one is a little bit simpler one. This is just with single Q-tips that haven't been cut. So you've got one for each finger and then 2 in the arm. This one on the other side is a little bit more complicated for the older children to try. This one, you're cutting the Q-tips and you're looking at the different parts of the finger. So if you look back at the x-ray picture, it'll help you to figure out all those different sections. And they've even got the part where that goes into the fingernail. Okay, so that's what we're going to do, and we're going to all have a little x-ray of our own hands. And don't forget, every artist signs their drawing, so make sure you put your signature on it. Again, I'd love to see pictures of this, so if you want to send them on to me, you have the information from before. Now, if you had great fun doing the x-ray of your hand, now you could try to do a Q-tip skeleton, so a full skeleton with the Q-tips. So it's the same thing on black paper, but you're going to have to look at a picture, maybe your drawing you did earlier, and try and glue these Q-tips down. So you're going to use the brush and put the glue down onto the paper, and then place the Q-tip on top to glue them down. Now, when I was working in Gaelscoil in Knocknacarra, we did giant skeletons in the class. So kind of like what we did with our hands, we got somebody to lie down on the black paper and we drew around them. And we used white paper instead of Q-tips because they wouldn't have been big enough to cut out the different shapes for all the bones. So you could, if you have maybe got some old wallpaper lying around at home and see if mum and dad could help you out if you had something like that. You could roll out on the floor, draw around the person, and you could draw in your skeleton. If you don't have black paper, that's fine. Use white and then just draw with marker, and then you'll be able to see it. It doesn't have to be cut out with paper. But these are really cool. These are the ones that they're not completely finished yet, but we had started them in Rangahane. Now we're coming to the end, and I want you to think back on those questions at the very, very start, and let's see if you can answer them now. So what's the function of the skeleton? What is it for? Do you remember those 4 things that we had on the slide? I want you to see if you can answer that. And if you can't, go back and have a look and then go through the questions again until you're able to answer all of them. From the video, you will have learned how many bones are in the human body. How many are in the human body? And we said there are over 300 in a child's body, but an adult, how many did they have? Maybe you want to listen back to the video again. If you want to send me a question if you can't find the answer, no problem, send it to me. Where is the longest bone in the body? Do you remember I said people often make a mistake with this because a lot of the time people think it's the spine because the spine is really long. But we learned that the spine isn't a bone, it's made up of 33 different bones. So what is the part of the skeleton that protects the brain? So do you remember our words that we used and the drawing by Leonardo da Vinci? What is a special part of the skeleton that is covering our brain? What do you call the place where the bones join together? Do you remember we talked about this? The different kinds of ones. We had the hinge and we had the ball and socket. What are they called? Now this is one of the ones that is really special, the stuff that's inside the bone. I'm calling it stuff because I don't know what else you'd call it. It's kind of a tissue. It's soft and squidgy inside our hard bones. Where is the smallest bone in our body? You will have learned this from the video as well. And what do our ribs protect? We know they protect organs, but I want you to name the 2 organs that they protect. So see now if you can answer those questions. If you can, brilliant, because you've learned an awful lot from doing this lesson. We've learned about Leonardo da Vinci, we've learned a bit of history, we've looked at maps of the world in Europe. We know that Italy is in the shape of a boot. What else did we do? We did a lot about how Leonardo da Vinci did his notebooks. We looked at the skeleton, how artists need to understand that to draw people. You did your skeleton drawing. Hopefully you did your x-ray of your hand. If not, maybe another skeleton one with Q-tips. You did your skeleton dance, which is great for trying out how your body moves. And in all of that, it's been great fun. And I hope you enjoyed it. And please send any images, videos, questions, comments. I'd be delighted to hear from you. So that's the end of the presentation. Please keep in touch. You can find me on Instagram, Galway Art Academy, on Facebook, Galway Art Academy. My name is Dee, and hope this lesson has been helpful to you in these difficult times that we're in. Keep being creative and let me know if there's anything you'd like me to cover in another lesson, and I'll see what I can do, or if there's anything from this lesson that maybe you might like to hear more about. Okay, bye for now.